The air on SciFiPrime felt heavy. Thousands of beings from across the galaxy packed the Imperial Plaza, their bodies creating a sea of different colors, shapes, and sizes. They pushed against each other to get a better view of the raised platform in the center. Armed guards with scaled skin and glowing yellow eyes formed a tight circle around the platform. Their black armor reflected the light of the three suns overhead. Olivia Wright kept her head high as the guards dragged her through the crowd. The 19-year-old engineer from New Terra had small cuts on her face and arms. Her brown hair was messy and her gray prison clothes were torn, but her green eyes remained clear and focused. She knew exactly what was happening and why she was there. The crowd went quiet as Olivia reached the platform. Many had traveled across star systems to witness this event. Humans were rare in the central planets of the Galactic Empire. Most stayed in their colonies, far from the Zilarian-controlled worlds. To see one executed was even rarer. Emperor Drazkoth sat on his floating throne above the platform. The Zilarian ruler wore golden armor covered with symbols of his many victories. His skin was pale blue, and the ridges on his head glowed with psychic energy. 4 large guards with special mind shields stood near him. The Emperor was taking no chances with the human prisoner. "Bring the criminal forward," said Grand Minister Vex. His voice was made louder by devices that carried it across the plaza, and to viewers on thousands of worlds. The guards pushed Olivia to her knees. She did not fight them. "Olivia Wright of New Terra," Vex read from a glowing tablet. "You have been found guilty of spying against the Empire, damaging Imperial property, and encouraging rebellion against the rightful rule of Emperor Drazkoth. May his wisdom guide us for eternity." The crowd hissed and clicked in approval. Most species in the Empire believed humans were dangerous and wild. They had been taught this for generations. "These are not her real crimes," a voice called out. The crowd turned to see Alan Peters, Earth's ambassador, pushing through the guards. His formal blue uniform stood out among the Zilarian armor. "The real crime is that she learned too much," Alan said. His voice shook with anger. "She discovered the truth about your precious network, and now you silence her." The Emperor leaned forward on his throne. "Ambassador, your presence is allowed out of respect for diplomatic rules. But one more word and you will join this criminal." Alan looked at Olivia with sadness in his eyes. They both knew he had tried everything to save her. Emergency messages to Earth, appeals to the Galactic Council, secret deals offered to the Emperor's advisors. Nothing had worked. The Emperor raised his hand for silence. The human criminal was caught placing unauthorized code into the sacred network. "This is an attack on the very system that keeps peace among our 7,000 worlds." What the Emperor didn't say what Olivia had discovered 3 years ago, while working as a junior technician, was that the network had a fatal flaw. A flaw that revealed the Empire's biggest lie. Olivia scanned the crowd carefully. Her eyes stopped on a tall man wearing the brown cloak of a trader from the outer worlds. Jack Miller had changed his appearance. His normally short blonde hair was now long and dark. His face was partly hidden by a breathing mask, common for humans in the heavy air of SciFiPrime, but Olivia would know those blue eyes anywhere. Her childhood friend had made it. The plan could work. Jack touched his hand to his chest, their secret signal since they were kids playing in the fields of New Terra. He had received her package. Everything was ready. The Emperor continued speaking about the danger of humans and the need for the Empire to control them. Olivia barely listened. Her mind was on the code she had created, hidden in fragments across the network. For 3 years, she had placed tiny pieces of it in systems across the galaxy. Pieces that, when activated together, would reveal everything. Grand Minister Vex finished reading the crimes. "The sentence is death, to be carried out immediately." He turned to Olivia. "Do you have any final words, human?" The guards pulled Olivia to her feet. The crowd went silent, curious what a condemned human might say. Olivia looked directly at the Emperor. His eyes narrowed as he stared back at her. For a moment, she thought he might be trying to read her mind, but she knew the mental block she had trained with would keep him out. "Our light cannot be extinguished," she said. Her voice was clear and calm. These simple words were broadcast across the Empire. On 53 worlds, human operatives heard them and understood the signal. In a forgotten bunker beneath New Terra, a quantum computer received the voice pattern and began its programmed sequence. The executioner stepped forward. He was a tall Zilarian with ceremonial marks on his face. He carried a curved blade that glowed with energy. This was no simple cutting tool. It was designed to end both life and any psychic energy the victim might possess. Olivia's eyes found Jack one last time in the crowd. She gave him a small nod. Jack's hand moved to a hidden pocket where he kept the data crystal she had slipped him during her brief time in public holding. The crystal contained the activation codes, her assurance that the plan would continue. Even if she died, the executioner raised his blade high. Light from the three suns made it shine like a star above Olivia's head. Ambassador Alan Peters turned away. Unable to watch, Emperor Drazkuth leaned forward, his eyes fixed on the human who had dared to challenge his empire. The blade came down. In that moment, unknown to anyone in the plaza, a timer started. 47 minutes until everything changed. On digital displays across the Empire, news of the execution flashed as the top story. Images of Olivia's face appeared with warnings about human rebellion. Imperial commentators praised the swift justice of the Emperor, but in secret communications channels, different messages began to spread. The Firefly Protocol had been activated. Olivia Wright was gone, but what she had set in motion was just beginning. Time, 0 minutes. Jack Miller moved quickly through the crowd as people began to leave the plaza. His heart felt heavy, but he forced himself to focus on what needed to be done. Olivia had known the risks. She had accepted them. Now it was his job to make sure. Her sacrifice meant something. The narrow streets of SciFiPrime's capital city were filling with aliens from the execution. Jack kept his head down and his breathing mask in place. A human would stand out here, especially now. He slipped into a dark side street, checking over his shoulder to make sure no one followed him. 3 kilometers beneath the surface of New Terra, Commander Susan Kelly sat in a chair that was too small for her tall frame. The bunker had been built before the Zilarian conquest, when humans first settled the planet. Most people had forgotten it existed. The air smelled stale despite the filters. The only light came from the screens that covered the walls. Susan watched as a message appeared on her main screen. Firefly Protocol initiated. Below these words was Olivia Wright's name and a timestamp. Susan checked her watch. The message had been sent 43 seconds before Olivia's death. She did it, Susan whispered. She pressed her palm against a scanner, and a hidden panel opened in the wall. Inside was a small device with a single button. Susan took a deep breath and pressed it. Across 53 worlds, similar devices activated. Each one held a piece of code that Olivia had created. Like a puzzle coming together, these pieces began to find each other through the network that connected the Empire. Jack ducked into an old building near the spaceport. The place looked abandoned, with broken windows and dust covering the floor. But Jack knew better. He knocked on a wall in a specific pattern. A section of the floor slid open, revealing a ladder going down. "You made it," said Olivia's cousin, Ben Harris. His eyes were red from crying, but his hands were steady as they worked on a large transmitter. "Did you see it happen?" Jack nodded, not trusting himself to speak. He reached into his pocket and pulled out the data crystal Olivia had given him. It glowed with a soft blue light. "Is that it?" Ben asked. "Yes, this is the master key. The other codes won't work without this one." Ben took the crystal carefully and placed it in a slot on the transmitter. "The Imperial Guards are sealing the city. They always do after public executions. We have maybe 10 minutes before they start building-to-building searches." Jack looked at the screens around them. Each showed a different part of the plan unfolding. "How many of our people are in position?" "All of them," Ben said. "Olivia's message reached everyone." On the Imperial flagship orbiting SciFiPrime, Admiral Kren frowned at his screen. Something was wrong with the network. Small errors were appearing in systems across the ship. Nothing serious yet, but unusual. "Run a full diagnostic," he ordered. and increase security on all network access points. His second-in-command looked nervous. Sir, we're seeing similar reports from ships in 20 different sectors. Admiral Kren's frown deepened. This was not a coincidence. Lock down all communication systems. No messages in or out until we know what's happening, but it was too late. The code fragments were already moving through the network, finding each other, combining into something larger. In her underground bunker, Susan Kelly watched as data streamed across her screens. The bunker had been built to survive planetary bombardment. Its systems were separate from the Imperial network, allowing her to see what was happening without being detected. "Come on, Olivia," she whispered. "Show me what you found." A notification flashed on her screen. The data crystal in Jack's transmitter had been activated. The final piece was in place. Susan's fingers flew across her keyboard, helping the process along. Years of planning were coming to a head. Jack and Ben watched their own screens nervously. Imperial patrols were getting closer to their hiding place. How much longer? Jack asked. Ben checked the progress bar on the transmitter. 3 more minutes. Then it all goes out. Jack picked up a weapon from a nearby table. I'll keep watch. If they find us before we're done. Nodded. They both knew how important this transmission was. It had to go out no matter what. In the Imperial Palace, Emperor Drazkoth sat on his throne, still wearing his ceremonial armor from the execution. His advisors stood around him, reporting on the day's events. "The execution has been well received, Your Highness," said Minister Vex. "The feeds show 97% approval across core worlds." The Emperor nodded, pleased. "And what of Earth? Any response from their government?" "Their ambassador has filed a formal protest, but it's just for show. Their military remains in their assigned sectors." A young aide rushed into the room, breaking protocol. Guards immediately surrounded him, weapons ready. "Forgive me, Emperor," the aide said, bowing low. "There is an urgent matter with the network. Security protocols are being triggered across multiple systems." The Emperor's eyes narrowed. "Explain." "We don't know yet, Your Highness. It appears to be some kind of coordinated." Alarms began to sound throughout the palace. The main screen on the wall flickered and went dark. "What is happening?" the Emperor demanded. Standing now, none of his advisors could answer. In the hidden room beneath the abandoned building, Ben let out a small cheer. "It's done. The transmission is complete." Jack looked at the screen. "Did it work? Is it spreading?" "Everywhere," Ben said, his voice filled with wonder. "Olivia's code is replicating across the entire network. There's nothing they can do to stop it now." Through the Imperial network, Olivia's discovery began to appear on screens everywhere. Not a virus or an attack, but information. Secret information that the Emperor had kept hidden for centuries. Susan Kelly watched from her bunker as the truth spread across the galaxy. Tears ran down her face. "You did it, Olivia," she whispered. "You really did it. On thousands of worlds, beings of all species stopped what they were doing to stare at their screens. What they saw changed everything they believed about the Empire and the humans who lived within it. The clock was ticking. 17 minutes had passed since Olivia Wright's execution. 30 minutes remained until the Empire would fall. Every screen across the Empire showed the same images. People stopped in the streets to watch. Workers left their machines. Pilots set their ships on autoflight. All eyes were fixed on the truth that Olivia Wright had discovered. The images showed a secret facility deep beneath the Imperial Palace on SciFiPrime. Rows and rows of clear tanks filled the enormous room. In each tank floated a human body, connected to machines by dozens of tubes and wires. Their eyes were open but saw nothing. Their minds were active but controlled. More images appeared. Classified files, secret orders, hidden reports. The evidence was clear and impossible to deny. For over 300 years, the Emperor and those before him had been capturing humans with special mental abilities. They kept these humans in a sleep-like state, using their brains to power the psychic network that controlled the entire Empire. The Emperor had always claimed that the Zilarians were the only species with the mental powers needed to maintain the network. He said this was why they had the right to rule. It was the foundation of the Empire's power, and it was a lie. In the Imperial Palace, Emperor Draskoth watched in horror as his secret was exposed to the galaxy. His advisors scrambled around him, shouting orders that no one followed. "Shut it down!" the Emperor roared. "Shut down all communications now." Minister Vex's hands shook as he worked at a control panel. "We can't, Your Highness." The override. "Codes aren't working. The system isn't recognizing our authority. That's impossible." The human Olivia Wright, she must have changed the command structures before we caught her. The Emperor's face darkened with rage. "Find her friends." "Find anyone connected to her. Kill them all." But his orders couldn't go out. The network that had carried his commands across the galaxy for so long was no longer his to control. On the human colony world of New Terra, Governor Nancy Wells stood on the steps of the government building. Thousands of people had gathered in the main square, watching the screens that showed the Emperor's crimes. "People of New Terra," Nancy said, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "For generations we have lived under Zilarian rule. We have obeyed their laws and accepted their authority because we believed their power came from natural abilities that we did not have." The crowd listened in silence. "Now we know the truth. Their power came from our people humans they stole, and trapped and used like batteries." Nancy took a deep breath. "As of this moment, New Terra declares itself independent from the Galactic Empire." The crowd erupted in cheers. Similar scenes played out on human colonies across the galaxy. But Olivia's plan wasn't just about freeing humans on the Uraxi homeworld. The tall four-armed beings who had been the Empire's strongest allies for centuries watched the evidence with growing anger. For generations, the Zilarians had used the psychic network to subtly influence the Uraxi, making them more agreeable to Imperial demands. The Uraxi High Commander turned to his advisors. "Prepare the fleet. The alliance is over." In the Galactic Council chambers, representatives from hundreds of worlds sat in stunned silence as more evidence appeared on their screens. Ambassador Kevin Howard of Earth stood to address them. "The network that we all relied on has been compromised from the beginning," he said. "The Emperor has been using it to subtly influence Council decisions for centuries. The votes we thought were free and fair were manipulated. The policies we created together were twisted to benefit the Zilarians." Kevin displayed more files that Olivia had discovered. "Look at the pattern of Council decisions over the past 200 years. Every major vote somehow ended up strengthening Imperial control." The Council members began to talk among themselves, their voices rising in anger as they realized how they had been used. On an Imperial battleship near the border of human space, High General Vorn watched the evidence unfold on his screen. The old Zilarian soldier had served the Empire for over 60 years. He had led campaigns against rebels and fought to expand Imperial territory. He had always believed he was serving a righteous cause. Now he knew the truth. General Vorn stood before his crew on the command deck. "I have spent my life fighting for the Empire," he said, his voice heavy. "I believed our rule was just because our mental abilities made us uniquely suited to maintain the network that keeps our galaxy at peace." He pointed to the screen showing the human captives in their tanks. "We have been deceived. Our Emperor has lied to us all." The crew watched in silence as their general removed the Imperial insignia from his uniform and placed it on the command console. "I will not fight to defend this lie," General Vorn said. "I order all Imperial forces under my command to stand down." Similar scenes played out across the Imperial military as officers and soldiers learned the truth. Battle groups that had been preparing to put down rebellions powered down their weapons. Planetary garrisons opened their gates and laid down their arms on SciFiPrime. Jack Miller led a group of resistance fighters through the streets toward the central processing facility where the captive humans were kept. Imperial guards tried to stop them, but many simply stepped aside. Confused by the revelations and unable to receive new orders from their commanders. In the palace, The Emperor's inner circle began to fall apart. Some advisors tried to distance themselves from the crimes. Others attempted to flee the planet. Palace guards abandoned their posts, unwilling to die for a ruler whose power was built on lies. Emperor Drazkuth watched as his empire crumbled around him. Only 29 minutes had passed since Olivia Wright's execution, and already his 300-year-old dynasty was collapsing. "Prepare my ship," he ordered the few guards who still obeyed him. "We are leaving immediately." As the Emperor hurried through the palace corridors toward his private hangar, screens on the walls continued to show more evidence of his crimes. The faces of the captive humans, some who had been held for decades, stared out at him from every direction. Among them was a face he recognized, Olivia Wright's older brother, who had disappeared 5 years ago while traveling between colonies. The records showed he had been captured on the Emperor's direct orders after showing signs of unusual mental abilities. The Emperor quickened his pace. There was still time to escape, to reach the emergency bunker on the far side of the galaxy, where he had prepared for a worst-case scenario. But he would have to hurry. The countdown continued, 29 minutes down. 18 minutes to go. Jack Miller and his team reached the central processing facility beneath the Imperial Palace. The building looked ordinary from the outside, like any government office, but deep underground was the heart of the Emperor's lie. 2 guards stood at the entrance, looking uncertain. "The network is down," one guard said to the other. "No new orders. What do we do?" The second guard asked. "I don't know." Jack stepped forward. He had removed his disguise now. There was no point hiding anymore. "You let us pass," he said, "or you try to stop us and fail." The guards looked at the group of 20 humans, all armed and determined. They looked at each other. Then they stepped aside. "Smart choice," Jack said as he led his team inside. They took the main elevator down into the earth. The doors opened to reveal a long white hallway. At the end was a large metal door with many locks. "How do we get through that?" asked Emma Lane, one of the resistance fighters. Jack pulled out a small device that Olivia had given him. With this, when they reached the door, Jack placed the device on the control panel. The screen lit up with Olivia's face. "Voice confirmation required," said a computer voice. "Our light cannot be extinguished," Jack said. Repeating Olivia's last words, the locks on the door clicked open one by one. The massive door slowly swung open. What they saw inside made them stop in shock. The room was enormous, stretching farther than they could see. Thousands of tanks filled with clear liquid lined the walls and covered the floor. In each tank floated a human, eyes open but unseeing. "There are so many," Emma whispered. Jack checked a screen near the door. 8,422, he read. "Some have been here for over 50 years? The team spread out, looking for the control center. They had to free these people without hurting them. Disconnecting them too quickly could kill them. In another part of the palace, Emperor Drazkuth reached his private hangar. 5 loyal guards surrounded him, keeping him safe from his own angry people. His personal ship waited, engines already running. "Hurry, Your Highness," said Captain Grell, the head of his guard. "The crowds are getting closer." The Emperor rushed up the ramp into his ship. It was the fastest vessel in the Empire, capable of jumps that no other ship could make. Once he was away from SciFiPrime, he could disappear. As the ship lifted off, the Emperor allowed himself to relax slightly. He had escaped the palace. Now he just needed to get off-world. The ship burst through the atmosphere into space. The Emperor looked down at his capital planet, still believing he could return someday and rebuild his power. Then he saw them. Dozens of ships surrounding the planet. Not just Imperial vessels, but ships from many worlds. And they were all waiting for him. A message came through on the communication system. "Emperor Drazkuth," said a calm female voice. "This is Captain Lisa Barrett of the Earthship Constellation. You are surrounded. Power down your engines and prepare to be boarded." The Emperor looked at the viewscreen in disbelief. The Earth ship was relatively small compared to Imperial battleships. But next to it were vessels from 7 other species, including Zellerian ships that should have been under his command. "This is your Emperor," he said into the communication system. "All Zellerian vessels, fire on the Earthship immediately." "That is a direct order." No response came, no ships moved. "They can't hear you," Captain Barrett said. "Or rather, they choose not to listen anymore. Your network is down. Your power is gone." Back in the processing facility, Jack and his team had found the control center. It was a circular room in the middle of the facility, with screens showing the status of each captive human. "Can we free them?" Emma asked. Jack studied the controls. "Yes, but it will take time. We need to wake them slowly, one section at a time." He began typing commands into the main console. On a screen above, the face of a woman in her 40s appeared. According to the information beside her image, her name was Carol Adams. She had been captured 12 years ago. "Beginning wake-up sequence for Section 1, Jack said. In the tanks of Section 1, the liquid began to drain slowly. Medical systems monitored the vital signs of each person as they were gently brought back to consciousness across the galaxy. The effects of the collapsing network were being felt. On the planet Vex Prime, the Uroxy fleet launched, breaking their alliance with the Empire. On 50 human colony worlds, people tore down Imperial flags and symbols. In the Galactic Council chambers, representatives voted to remove all Zellerian officials from power. Admiral Diane Foster, commander of Earth's Defense Fleet, received updates from ships across human space. The Zellerian military vessels were powering down their weapons. Their navigation systems tied to the psychic network were failing. Without the network, the once mighty Imperial fleet was just metal floating in space. "Send help to any ships in distress," Admiral Foster ordered, "but keep weapons ready. Not everyone will surrender peacefully." In the council chambers, Ambassador Kevin Howard presented more evidence that Olivia had gathered. Documents showing how the Emperor had been stealing technology from various worlds and claiming it as Zellerian inventions. Records of secret deals with some species at the expense of others. Proof that the Emperor had started wars between worlds to keep them weak and dependent on Imperial protection. "The deception goes beyond the network," Kevin told the Council. "The entire foundation of the Empire is built on lies." In the processing facility, the first group of captives was awake. Medical teams that Jack had brought with him were helping them sit up, drink water, speak their first words in years. Carol Adams looked around in confusion. "Where am I? What happened?" "You're on Centauri Prime," Jack told her gently. "You've been held captive by the Emperor, but you're free now." "How long?" she asked. 12 years. Tears filled her eyes. "My children... We'll help you find them," Jack promised. "We'll help all of you." He moved to the next section and began the wake-up process again. It would take days to free everyone safely. But they had started. Outside the palace, the crowds grew larger. Ordinary Zellerians who had believed in their Emperor now called for justice. The Imperial guards who had once been feared now stood down or joined the people. On his ship, surrounded by vessels from across the galaxy, Emperor Drazkoth realized he had nowhere to go. Captain Grell looked at him, waiting for orders. "What should we do, Your Highness?" Grell asked. The Emperor had no answer. For the first time in his 300-year life, he had no power over others, no network to manipulate, no lies to tell. He looked at the chronometer on the wall of his ship. 41 minutes had passed since Olivia Wright's execution. 6 minutes remained until the end. Emperor Drazkoth stood on the bridge of his ship, surrounded by space vessels from across the galaxy. His escape had failed. Captain Grell and the few loyal guards looked to him for orders, but he had none to give. "Your Highness," Captain Grell said quietly, "we must decide." The Emperor stared at the view screen. The Earthship constellation waited directly in front of them. Behind it were ships from 7 other species, including 3 Zellerian vessels that should have been under his command. "We still have weapons," the Emperor said. "We could fight." "We would not survive," Grell replied honestly. The communication system activated again. Captain Lisa Barrett's face appeared on the screen. "Emperor Drazkoth," she said. You have 1 minute to power down your engines and surrender. After that, we will be forced to disable your ship." The Emperor's hands curled into fists. 300 years of rule, 17 generations of his family controlling the galaxy, all ending because of one human girl. "Power down the engines," he finally ordered. Captain Grell nodded and gave the command. The gentle hum of the ship's engines faded to silence. "We are boarding your vessel," Captain Barrett said. "Do not resist." Minutes later, the Emperor stood in restraints as soldiers from Earth and other worlds took control of his ship. Captain Barrett approached him with representatives from the Uroxy, the Trell, and his own Zilarian people. "Emperor Drazkuth," Barrett said, "by order of the emergency session of the Galactic Council, you are under arrest for crimes against sentient beings." The Emperor said nothing as they led him away. In the council chambers, representatives from 100 worlds gathered in emergency session. The room buzzed with angry voices and demands for justice. At the center of the room stood Princess Zara, the Emperor's daughter and heir. Unlike her father, she wore simple clothes with no royal symbols. "The crimes of my father and those before him cannot be denied," Princess Zara said, her voice clear and strong. "As regent of the Zilarian people, I renounce all claims to rule over other worlds. I call for a new compact between our species, based on truth and cooperation." Ambassador Kevin Howard stepped forward. "The people of Earth welcome this new beginning. But justice must come first. Those responsible for these crimes must answer for them." Princess Zara nodded. "They will, starting with my father." The council voted to form a new government with representatives from all worlds having equal power. No single species would rule over others again. The empire was officially dissolved on New Terra in the small farming community where Olivia Wright had grown up. Her parents, George and Mary, sat in their living room watching the news broadcasts. Tears ran down their faces as they saw the empire falling and heard their daughter's name spoken with respect and gratitude across the galaxy. "She always said she would change things," Mary whispered. "Even as a little girl." George held his wife's hand tightly. "I wish she could see this." Their door chimed. When George opened it, he found Jack Miller standing there. Behind him was a tall man with tired eyes. "Mr. and Mrs. Wright," Jack said. "I've brought someone home." The man stepped forward. Though older and thinner than they remembered, they knew him immediately. "Peter," Mary gasped, reaching for her son who had been missing for 5 years. "Is it really you?" Peter Wright nodded, tears in his eyes. "Olivia found me," he said. "She found all of us." In the processing facility beneath the Imperial Palace, the work continued. Medical teams helped more captives wake up safely. Hundreds were already conscious, learning about the years they had lost and the new galaxy they had awakened to. Jack had returned to New Terra after finding Peter among the captives, but Emma Lane remained to oversee the rescue operation. "How many more to go?" asked a doctor from Earth. Emma checked the screens. "About 6,000. It will take days to wake them all safely. And then? Then they go home, if they still have homes, or they start new lives." "Their choice," the doctor nodded. "Freedom of choice. Something the Emperor never allowed." As ships from Earth and other worlds arrived to help with the rescue, Emma found herself in the control center of the facility. She noticed a sealed door that they hadn't opened yet. Using the device Jack had left her, she unlocked it. Inside was a small room with a single screen. When Emma touched it, Olivia Wright's face appeared. "If you're seeing this," Olivia's recording said, "then the plan worked. The Empire has fallen. The truth is known." Emma stood still, listening to the voice of the woman whose execution had started everything. But revealing the truth was only the beginning, Olivia continued. "The network needs to be replaced with something better. Something honest and open that all species can understand and monitor." The screen changed to show technical diagrams and plans. Emma's eyes widened as she realized what she was seeing. "I found more than just the network's vulnerability," Olivia explained. "I designed its replacement. A system that connects worlds without controlling them. Technology that helps without manipulation. Emma called the others immediately. This was more important than they had realized. Olivia hadn't just destroyed the old system, she had created a new one on planets across the galaxy. People of all species began to rebuild. The fall of the Empire left gaps in trade, communication, and government. But without the emperors, lies and control, new connections formed quickly. In the council chambers, Princess Zara and representatives from other worlds reviewed Olivia's plans for the new network. "It's brilliant," said the Euroxy delegate. "Simple enough that anyone can understand it, but powerful enough to connect the galaxy. And transparent," added Kevin Howard. "No hidden controls or secret access. Everyone can see how it works." Princess Zara nodded. A fitting legacy for Olivia Wright. The new network would take time to build. The new government would take time to form. The captives would need time to heal. But the change had begun, and it could not be stopped. On New Terra, the Wright family stood together in their garden. Peter was getting stronger every day. His parents were helping him adjust to freedom. Above them, stars filled the night sky, stars that now represented possibility instead of imperial control. "Do you think she knew?" Mary asked softly. "Did Olivia know exactly what would happen?" George looked up at the stars. "I think she hoped. And she was willing to risk everything for that hope." Far away on Captain Barrett's ship, the former emperor sat in a cell, waiting for his trial. On the wall opposite him was a screen showing the time and date. He stared at it, remembering 40-7 minutes. That was all it had taken. From the moment of Olivia Wright's execution to the complete collapse of his empire. 47 minutes to undo 300 years of Zalarian rule. All because of one human girl who discovered the truth and refused to let it stay hidden. The story of Olivia Wright spread across the galaxy, told and retold on thousands of worlds. Not as propaganda or legend, but as history. The true story of how a human girl was publicly executed, and within 47 minutes, the Galactic Empire crumbled.